Hello, and welcome to the presentation of the Value Chain Analysis for Development project, VCA4D. My name is Olimpia Rondoni, and I'm the Policy and Project Coordinator of VCA4D. We are recording a series of presentations on the project and on its methodology. We expect selected experts that will participate in VCA4D studies to have carefully listened to these videos before the briefing. We want to change the way that we perform the briefings and to make the briefing a moment where we can exchange about doubts, reply to your questions, go deeper in the reflections about your value chain, share lessons learned from previous experiences. So we invite you to take a notebook and a pen close to you, and we look forward to your questions and to our further exchanges. Now let's delve into VCA4D. In the current presentation, you will learn about what is the VCA4D project about? What is the context of your study? Who is asking and using these studies? And what is the process of a VCA4D study? We also invite you to learn more about the project on the VCA4D Capacity for Dev webpage. You can find the link on the slide in front of you. So enjoy the videos and welcome to VCA4D. VCA4D is a project currently in its second phase, and it's performed in a partnership between the European Commission and DG INPA in particular and AgriNatura. The project started in 2016, and the end is currently foreseen for 2025. The main activity of VCA4D is to perform value chain analysis. Out of a total of 65 studies as of May 2022, we have 37 studies closed, 7 ongoing, and 21 still to be identified. Updates of the studies to see the changes that are occurring on a value chain over time are also foreseen as a project activity. As a project, we have some specific features that we would like to bring your attention to. VCA4D performs impact analysis using always the same methodology, as summarized in the VCA4D methodological brief. The methodology was conceived by the European Commission that needed analysis that would respond to the need of the EU as an aid provider, and thus improve the way that policies and projects are structured. The VCA4D brief mixes existing methods, and AgriNatura helped to complete and update this framework currently in its version number 2. VCA4D is based also on the revamp of quantitative data that are used to appraise the inclusiveness and sustainability of an agri-based value chain. The analysis is started with a functional analysis and completed by economic, social, and environmental analysis. This means that multidisciplinarity is a key feature of VCA4D. The aim of the study is to have a robust diagnosis and state of affairs of a value chain, and you, as experts, are expected to highlight the bottlenecks and opportunities for development of a value chain, as well as the impacts and results of investments. Having a VCA4D study means for an EU delegation and for the partner country to have an instrument for policy dialogue and for improving operations, such as projects, budget support, etc. In a nutshell, VCA4D wants to know what is happening to inform decision makers through evidence-based analysis. Capacity strengthening activities are an increasingly important component of VCA4D. On the one side, we foresee trainings for policymakers, in the first place staff in EU delegations, to support them in integrating the information provided in a VCA4D study into decision-making and dialogue. In particular, we are developing a serious game on this topic. On the other side, we are also organizing training activities for AgriNatura experts and researchers in partner countries. This is on the VCA4D methods and in particular on some components of its methodology. Stakeholder workshops are also an important activity. In accordance with an EU delegation, the team of experts are often requested to go back to the country to present the main findings of a VCA4D studies back to VC stakeholders. Moreover, cross-cutting activities are organized to add value to all the studies that we perform. For example, for thin synthesis on a number of topics and studies are being done by VCA4D experts and will be presented at a high-level conference in Brussels at the end of 2022. We are also constructing a knowledge management and information system that is collecting all the data included in the reports and that will be a public good at disposal of public and private actors involved in the value chain, as well as to researchers. As you see, VCA4D is a very active and dynamic project that wants to build a strong bridge between research and policy making and contribute to improving the sustainability and inclusiveness of value chains. I now leave the floor to my colleague Georgia May that will keep presenting you the VCA4D project, and I will see you soon. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Olympia, for the floor. So my name, as Olympia said, is Georgia May. I'm the project officer VCA4D. So after this overview of the main activities of VCA4D project, now I will continue with a short overview of how the project is implemented and what the PMU does daily to support researchers and policymakers in this project. And then we will move to explain more in detail the entire VCA4D process, from the launch of the study until the approval of the report, and even other activities that we can do after together. First of all, the project is implemented by Agrinatura. Is a European alliance, is the European Alliance, a university research center specialized in agriculture research for development. All experts involved in this project have solid scientific backgrounds because they come from research centers and they have backgrounds on all the disciplines that we need for our studies, economic, social, and environmental. There are some structures that support the implementation of the project, the steering committee and the steering group. The steering committee is a meeting that we do once a year between the Directorate General of International Partnership of the European Commission, the Unit F3, and Agrinatura. Is organized, as I say, once a year to guide the implementation of the project. And it is mostly to take strategic decisions on the life of the project. Then we have the steering group. The steering group is the group of some Agrinatura centers, the PMU and the Agrinatura Association. We meet twice a year, at least twice a year, to oversight and support the project management unit in the implementation of the project. Let's say to discuss really, to define together the work plan on future activities and discuss some challenging issues that might occur during the implementation of the project. The active member in the steering group are NRI, CIRAD, ICRA, ISA, which is a research center from Portugal, SLU is the Swedish University of Agricultural Research. But beyond this structure that guide the implementation of the project, we also, VCA4D is really a partnership to create, it's not just about the management of the project, but really to create a pool of expertise and a community of practice across research centers involved in the project. So to have these experts that are engaged over the longer period, to support policymakers in their activities. So apart from the structure that guide this partnership, we have the project management unit that is there to guarantee the day-by-day management of the different activities of the VCA4D project. The project management unit is composed of the scientific director, Marilyn Daba. She will present to you the economic analysis, the inclusive business part, another the rational audit methodology. The research officer, Eval, she will present you the environmental part of the methodology, another component. The policy and project coordinator, Olympia, the project officer, myself, and the communication administrative officer, Sara. What we do daily, as I said, we facilitate the relation between the headquarters, the DG INTPA, the Unit F3, the EU delegations, that are the ones that are mostly asking the study, we will see this later, and expert on behalf of Agrinatura. So we guarantee the day-by-day organization and running of all activities, not only the performance of the study, but also the other activities that Olympia presented. We are really the contact point and support the experts during the entire process of the study, especially for some important milestones during the process, such as the missions, the organization of the missions, for your visa, to prepare the planning to be submitted to the delegation, etc. We will see this later. And of course, we guarantee we are in charge of the quality backstopping, because the studies, when are submitted to the PMU, they go through the quality backstopping, which is done by Marie-Hélène and Eval, before they are submitted to the Unit F3 for their approval. So as I anticipated, we have different roles. For questions on the methodology, you should contact Marie-Hélène and Eval before the start, at the beginning of the study, where you are trying to enter into the detail of the methodology throughout the entire process. And also once you receive the quality backstopping, the comments from the quality backstopping. For all aspects of organizational relation with the EUD, you can contact myself and Olympia. For aspects concerning contracts, communication, etc., you can contact Sarah. And for questions concerning your payments, directly NRI. Now, after this overview on who is implementing the project and what the PMU does, we can move more in detail to understand a bit the process, who is asking these studies, why they are relevant for the EU operation, etc. First of all, we are doing these studies for policymakers, either in the EU delegation or for the Unit F3 in Brussels. And what we are providing is knowledge to give a clear picture of the value chain and inform decision makers for the operation. We will see this a bit better later, but basically we provide knowledge to make possible that policymakers have a clear understanding of the functioning of the VCA4D. And so we always say we want the policymaker to be able to move from this picture, which is not clear, of the value chain, to this vision of the value chain that is much more clear. And they can have a clear picture of the situation of the value chain from the different point of view: economic, environmental, and social. And now let's see how concretely we can support policymakers for this study to provide this clear picture of the chain. VCA4D is mobilized, as I said, for EU policymakers, either in the EU delegation or for the Unit F3 in Brussels. We have a methodological framework which is standard and it is the same for every country, because we have specific indicators for each component that is a standard methodological framework that experts need to adapt to each context. But it is important that by applying this methodology, we try to integrate in the report, in the analysis, the preoccupation of policymakers. And that's why we define this preoccupation and this expectation an objective from the report in the terms of reference that we develop together with the delegation or the Unit F3. When the policymaker can request these studies, they can request this study at any moment of the EU project cycle, because the study provides a baseline and appraisal of the situation at the given moment in time. So the policymaker will have this picture of the situation they can use to support the activities before or after an investment, for the implementation of the project, to support the elaboration of the strategy, etc. We will have a clear explanation in the next slides about the reason for asking the BCA. the DCA4D studies. We can also undertake monitoring and updates to help policymakers understand how the VC value chain is evolving over time. And when we perform these studies, as much as possible, together with the delegation, we try to involve national experts. And this is important because national experts, in the end, they should, by involving national partners, sorry, we try to ensure the ownership of the results. And hopefully, the results and the recommendation of the report will be, let's say, used, shared with the value chain stakeholders and the national partners for future activities in the different investments and operations. So it is very important to involve national partners. And basically, with this picture, with this neutral evidence-based knowledge of the value chain, we want to support the quality of the policy dialogue between the EU and national partners and contribute to build a strong cooperation between researchers and policymakers, as Olympia already said, to really bridge this gap between the research and the policy making, and to put research at disposal of policy making. Now, to go a bit more in detail of the reason why an EU delegation can ask a DCA for this study, as we say, they can ask at different moment over the EU project cycle. For example, they can ask a study to support policy dialogue. This is what happened in the case, for example, of the study of fisheries in Georgia, where we did this study to help FAO and national partners to develop the aquaculture strategy. So the funding should support the finalization of the aquaculture strategy. For Ecuador coffee, for example, there was a national strategy on the promotion of competitiveness of the coffee or the cluster on coffee. And now, thanks to this study, the objective was to try to revamp the policy dialogue and the implementation and the building of operation around the cluster of coffee in Ecuador. For example, we can, in other cases, we do the study on cashew in Sierra Leone to support the revision of the cashew policy. So these are some examples of how we can contribute to improve the policy dialogue. In other cases, we can contribute, we can support the EUD in the implementation of project or programs. In the case, for example, Mali Cashew, there was an ongoing project to support the cashew value chain, and the findings of the study seems to have been used to have a new phase of the cashew project. For the Ghana and sorghum Ghana groundnuts, there is an ongoing project with the Ministry of Agriculture, and the study had been asked to revise some activities over the implementation of the project to make them taking into account the indicators of the DCA for this study. In other cases, most of the cases, we help, the study is requested by the delegation to help the formulation of new projects and programs. For example, like the development of the specific project for the DCA on cocoa, the value chain on cocoa in the framework of the private sector development program. And also, more in general, to have a baseline against which to analyze the status of the value chain over time. This can help the policymakers during implementation or for evaluation after the end of the project, etc. Now, why DCA4D is relevant for the EU? So basically, what is behind the rationale of this project? So value chain development is part of the EU strategy to promote inclusive growth and achieve food and nutrition security in partner countries. So it's one of the ways the EU is using to promote inclusive growth, reduce poverty, and also build a climate-friendly society in partner countries. There are several overarching policies, strategy, initiatives that guide the achievement of this objective of inclusive growth and food and nutrition security. In the cases of the ones that are linked to value chain development are, first of all, the new European Consensus on Development, which include, among the objectives, the promotion of sustainable jobs, inclusive and sustainable jobs, and the development of agricultural value chain that benefit the poor and take advantage of the opportunity offered by the market to create decent jobs and value added. This is one of the objectives in the new European Consensus on Development, which has among the overall objective to improve food and nutrition security. So one of the objectives of the European Consensus is to improve food and nutrition security, and one way to contribute to this objective is to develop inclusive and sustainable value chains. Beyond the promotion of inclusive and sustainable jobs and inclusive growth, another important objective of the EU is, of course, to build a greener society. So you might know the Green Deal. The Green Deal is a package of measures which aim to transform the EU into a modern, resource-efficient and competitive economy with a specific objective of no net emissions of greenhouse gases by 2050, economic growth which is decoupled from resource use, and the fact that it makes sure that everyone can benefit to this transformation of the society, so no person and no place left behind. The deal foresees investment in different policy areas such as biodiversity, food system, clean energy, sustainable industry. Again, all these clusters of action aim to transform the EU economy in a more inclusive and eco-friendly society. And what is interesting mostly, one of the areas which is more linked to value chain development are the actions that falls under the Farm to Fork strategy. The Farm to Fork strategy is again a strategy which develops actions to promote fair, healthy, and environmental friendly food system. And among the activities foreseen from the strategy to transform food system, it is also the promotion of inclusive value chain in partner countries and also in Europe, because the Green Deal and the Farm to Fork are first of all for Europe countries and then for international cooperation with partner countries. Another important aspect is also the inclusion of private sector, the integration of private sector in agricultural investments to make possible the private sector. There are more investments in agriculture, especially to support small farmers. There are different instruments and initiatives to attract more private investments in agriculture. The most important way used recently by the EU to improve these investments is the blended finance, which is a mix of grants and loans to lower risk, especially for small-scale farmers, so that they can build their agricultural activities and have, let's say, a guarantee if they, to have access to finance at lower risk. And one important activity which is specifically linked to value chain developments is AgriFi. AgriFi is an impact investment facility funded by the European Union with the mandate to provide support, medium to long-term financing to private sector, which are active in the agri-food value chain with a focus on smallholder farmers. This is especially targeting smallholder farmers. as much as possible in cooperation also with medium companies. EDFI combines investment capital and technical assistance and targets the existing private sector enterprises which work with smallholder farmers on financially, environmentally, and socially sustainable projects with potential to scale, but they cannot scale because they don't have enough access to finance. So they need more investment. It aims exactly at supporting the missing middle companies focused on agriculture that need financing to growth, but have difficulty to obtain this finance from local commercial banks and international investors. So AgriFi intervene to really support the missing middle companies as much as possible in collaboration with small farmers. This is one of the initiatives to attract more investments in agriculture, private investments in agriculture. Another one is the European External Investment Plan, which is another support package to partner countries which aim to scale up investments and create jobs, providing financial guarantees, blended finance, technical assistance, and support to improve this business environment. So the core of this type of support is really blended finance, the mix of grants and loans to lower risk. There are different ways. We cannot go in detail of this, but you have all the information on the links that are provided in the slide. Of course, we can provide more details if you need. All these instruments policy are the overarching, let's say, architecture, the guide, the EU development objectives with partner countries on inclusive growth and climate change. And these are, especially building green alliance and transforming food systems, are really now the main topics of developments in agricultural sector in partner countries that are actually building the new programming phase of the activities. We are in fact under the multi-financial framework 2021-2027, and the EU are now selecting priority sectors, including in agriculture, to formulate new operations. So why this show you why BCA4D is important, because what these BCA4D studies are doing, they are providing knowledge to support the building of more inclusive, sustainable, climate-friendly value chain. So, especially at this moment, the EU delegation can use these studies to build operations that take into account the sustainable, inclusive development of the chain from the environmental, social, and economic point of view, considering the recommendation of these studies. So it's really, especially in this period, the new programming, the definition of the new programming is ongoing. The studies are really relevant. So what BCA4D is and what is not. Now that we have an overview of why the studies are requested, for which reason the studies are requesting, and what they are an evidence-based picture of the value chain at this moment. We are now moving to explain what BCA4D is and what is not. So how the expert need to and policymaker need to interpret the nature of the study, what the study can provide. So BCA4D is a technical assistance to DG INPA and the EU delegation, which is mobilized at the request of the unit F3 of the delegations. Is an instrument to provide information easy to operationalize into policy dialogue and projects. So this is, we will see this, it is mostly important to provide recommendation that the policymaker can operationalize in their operations. Is a long-term framework, as we said, is a partnership for dialogue between the EU and Agrinatura members. The studies that the experts perform become public good when they are approved, and they are disposed of all public and private sector of a value chain. The BCA4D project is a service contract with parts of the services paid in global price, so the studies are paid under global price. But the VCA4D is not a research project. We say that is a consultancy with the robustness of research, but it's not a research project. And we say this is very important, because we need to provide, to try to reply to the needs of the delegation. They need to follow the time of the project cycle for programmation, for formulating new project, for implementing project, for evaluating project. They have a timeline. So we cannot, the VCA for this study cannot have the life of a research project. They need to expect a shorter time that is linked, that needs to be in line with the needs of the expectation of the delegation. It's not a formulation or identification project. This is another most important that need to be clear for experts since the beginning. We say that we help policymakers with this evidence-based knowledge for them to prepare new actions. So we support the formulation and identification phase of in EU delegation. But the study is not a feasibility analysis that say to the policymakers how to build new action. The expert just provide recommendation and detailed results on the different components, but then it is to the policymaker to decide how to make, to build the action based on these findings and recommendations. So this is very important, because even when you define when the expert define the recommendation, they are not saying to the EU policy officer what to write in the action document of a new project. They are just providing recommendations for them to decide how to operationalize this recommendation. So it is not a grant finance via research fund. We say that it is a service contract. It is not a prospective analysis, neither a market study. So we are not looking at potential, but the experts are looking at a given moment in the chain. So we are not looking at potential, but we will say later that we have a collaboration we call SAP, which is an organization that does market studies profile for us that are integrated in the value chain study. We will see this later. And finally, but still important, a policy assessment is not a policy assessment. The VCA4D really is not assessing how the policy is implemented to improve the development of the value chain. This is not an evaluation. It is, as we said, an understanding of the value chain situation, but it's not an assessment. Now we move to explain more in details how the VCA4D study process works, who are the actors in this process, and what are the milestones and the deliverables. So let's first clarify who are all the actors involved in the VCA4D study process. We have, first of all, the client, the one that received the studies. As we said, the study can be requested by the headquarters, the Unit F3, or mostly by the EU delegations, or by both. But there is a distinction between the delegations at F3. The EU delegation are let's say, they receive the study. They are active in some steps of the process, but most of the work is done by the expert of the project management unit, and the EU just received the final report. The EUD just received the final report. While for the Unit F3, they are involved more directly in the process, because they are the one that need to validate all the steps in the process and the deliverable, from the terms of reference until the final report. In the middle, there are the 5 of us, the project management unit, which are, as we say, we are the link between the client and the service provider, that in this case are the expert of Aginatura. And the key actor, of course, is the VCA4D team. The VCA4D team is made up of an economist, a national expert, a social expert, and an LCA expert, that is the environmental expert. And in this team, there is always a team leader that is decided during the selection process by the PAU together with the with the unit of 3. It can be the economist or the LCA. It can be the 3 position on the international. It can be covered by the 3 profiles of international expert. And of course, we don't need to forget that together with the EU delegations, as we say, they are the national partner. They are also a recipient of the VCA for this study. And as long as possible, they need to be involved in the study, as it happens in some studies, as it happens more and more in our studies. Now, let's have a quick look to the entire process. Then we will go into detail through the different steps and milestones. Very briefly, because you have this, you can look into this in detail also in terms of reference. But as you can see, you have the beginning, the identification of the value chain to be analyzed by the EU delegation that requests the study. We developed the terms of reference that are commented and approved by F3. We launched the call for proposal. We made up, we built the team. And then we launched the study with the briefing. And the team need to go on the field to do two field missions. In the between, after mission 1, they need to elaborate the brief. Now that is a summary of the first findings, where they try to build the topology of vectors. We will see this in details. And especially this is important for the team to identify the data gap and plan and develop the plan of mission 2, so that they can target the areas where they didn't go to collect the data that still they miss. So after the brief note, they prepare these, they start to analyze the findings, they prepare mission 2. They go on mission 2. And then after mission 2, they start to elaborate the draft final report. This draft final report is submitted to the PMU for a first quality check, and then sent to all the partners involved. That means the EU delegation and F3. And then a debriefing is organized to present the final results. After the debriefing, there is another quality check by the PMU to check that the comments from F3 and the delegations are integrated in the report. The report is sent back to the expert for a revision, and then submitted again to a PMU. We send the report for approval to F3. This is really roughly the process, but now we go into detail. Let's go now into the more deeply into the process. The duration and main steps of the VCA for this study. Each VCA for this study is a global prize. Thus, what matters is the approval of the final report and not the time spent on the assignment. But, as we said, we need to reply to the EU delegation needs that follows the specific timeline that aligns of the EU project cycle. So, we need to develop, the experts should deliver the report in 6 months, and over these 6 months, they have each expert has 45 days of expertise, 50 days for the team leader, including 2 missions, with at least 1 mission that needs to be done by all the team together, by all the members of the team together. This is really important because, as we said, this is not a research project. This is a consultancy with the robustness of a research expertise. But if the report arrives too late and the project cycle went on, it's not any more useful for the delegation. So what we want to stress here, we understand the robustness of research needs time, but the process, it is really important that the expert also try to understand that they need to stick to the time as much as possible, as the information has to arrive to policymaker in a time, a due time, in a time that can be integrated in their reflections. So the calendar, the deadlines are important. I wouldn't say at the same level of quality, but really we count on you to respect the timeline as much as possible. Of course, the calendar will be discussed with you and the EU delegation to make possible that, okay, we need to reply to the timeline, to the needs, but we know that you have other engagement, so it will be discussed with the delegation at the moment of the briefing. And it is important that the whole team is engaged in respect to the deadlines and the different milestones. Now, let's have a look at expected deliverables. So the team is expected to apply the VCA4D methodology to the relevant country, and as we said, it is a standard methodological framework, but as much as possible taking into account the expectation and needs that are defined in the terms of reference and discussing the EU delegations. They need to adapt this methodological framework to the specific chain and the specific country, to try to reply to what the EU delegation is waiting for. So listen to the question and needs of the EU to make the study useful, really concretely useful for policymaking. The main deliverables, as you might know, is a report, which is composed by an executive summary, which is very important to be selected because it is the basis for the study brief. We will explain this later. A functional analysis, a chapter for each of the framing questions, so economic growth, inclusiveness, social sustainability, environmental sustainability, and synthesis and conclusions and recommendations. We really ask you to try to stick to maximum 10 pages with 100 pages without annexes, because once again this report needs to be useful for policymaker, and you won't have any policymaker, a single policymaker that will read 200, 300 pages. So it is really important. Of course, they can read it, but they will strongly rely on the executive summary, the study brief, and the conclusion and recommendation. And really, we need to have a document that can be concretely used. So we kindly ask you to try to stick to these pages without the annexes. So, okay, we say again, it's not a research product. Respect the deadline is equally important than robustness. This we said already. Now, let's move a bit more into the detail of what is the division of task inside the VCA4D team. You have the economist, which need to take care of the functional analysis, but this is very important. Let's say he or she will be the one that will put together the elements of the functional analysis, but the work on the functional analysis, it has to be done by all experts, contribution by everyone. So the social, the environmental, and the national as well. Then, for the first framing question, what is the contribution of the value chain to economic growth? It is in charge, it is the responsibility of the economist. And the national expert, why we have the national expert everywhere? Because the national expert it does contribute to all the areas, but we need to remind it is the key actor for the data collection, and it might happen that after the mission, the other expert of the team, they will still need results. So the national expert has to be available to support the other experts to fill in data, to interpret data, to have more information for all the components of the analysis. The second framing question, is the economic growth inclusive? Is, first of all, let's say it is a joint work between the economist and the social expert. Because as you will see also in the social profile, there are many questions related to inclusiveness, but we are talking about inclusive growth. So it also especially concerns the economist. Is the value chain socially sustainable? is a responsibility of the social expert, and as we say again, once again, the national expert. Is the value chain environmentally sustainable? Is the environmental expert. And important, very important, the executive summary, the general comments, conclusion, and recommendation are the responsibility of the entire team. What about a team leader? The team leader, of course, it has to oversee all the process and make sure of the coherence between the different components of the report. And we have a question mark because the team leader, as we said, is decided by the PMU and F3 after the submission of CV, and it can be one of the three international expert profiles, so the environmental, the social, and the economist. Most of the time it is the economist because he's in charge of the functional and economic analysis. But we have many studies where it is also the FTA expert, the team leader. Okay, now let's move to explain what is the first very important milestone, which is the brief note. The brief note needs to be submitted 10 days after the first mission. And it has specific elements that the experts need to take into account in the elaboration of the brief note. We have a template, so we will provide you the template. What are these important elements? You will first of all summarize the actors that you met and provide general feedback on the missions, provide an overview of the collected information, and above all, a first analysis of the data gaps, because this will help you to define the program for mission 2 and to know what is the data gap, what is still the data that you need to collect. And the core of the brief note is the identification of the actors, functions, subchains, and a proposal of a common topology actor for the tree analysis. So this is a key point, and the brief note is very helpful for you to develop this topology before you start to write the draft final report, so that you have a common understanding of what are you taking into account in terms of actors and subchains in your report. And really, all the experts should try to use the same actors and subchains in the analysis, and that's why you are building since the beginning this common topology. Then you will you will provide a first overview of the preliminary findings concerning the physical and geographical flows, and then for each component, environmental, social, and economic, the first impressions, not even findings, but impressions and hypotheses of your analysis for each component. Then you will have a video conference will be organized to discuss the brief note with the PMU and the EU delegation, so that once you define this common topology, there is also common agreement and understanding by the recipient of the report, the EU delegation, what are the actors that you selected, and the subchains, and etc., etc. This is really important, because before you go into the detail of the draft final report, you can, let's say, redirect the analysis and really have a common basis for your analysis. Now here, just to show you, you have the template in the Dropbox. This is the main milestones is the final report, and this is the structure. Just to tell you that you need to follow the report is structured on the basis of the 4 framing questions. So you will have executive summary, functional analysis, and exactly you need the chapters is a reply to each framing question. So contribution to economic growth inclusiveness, social sustainability, environmental sustainability, and synthesis and recommendation. Please really try to use the template, because once again, the policymaker, they don't have time maybe to go into the detail of the report, but they will try to look at the reply that you gave in each chapter to the main question. So it is really important to follow the structure based on the framing questions. The executive summary is another important piece of the report, which is fundamental, as we already said. And it has to be really, let's say, around 10 pages of high quality and clear and concise, because it's really the tool together with the brief, not probably the delegation will use most for the concrete activities of policy dialogue and project implementation or formulation. It has to summarize the main findings of each analysis through a reply to the form framing questions. So basically, the division that you have in the template, in the executive summary, you will summarize the reply to your form framing questions. It has to highlight the areas where policy action shall be prioritized, and this is important. You will summarize in the executive summary also your conclusions and recommendations. And you will, let's say, put an alarm on some areas where you think more action should be taken by the EU delegation, but you won't say to the delegation how and what to do. You will just shed the light on specific elements or your analysis that, according to you, need more in-depth analysis or more action. And again, in the executive summary, the expert need to highlight the connection between the economic, social, and environmental findings, and this is very important because you show this connection to the policymakers, and then the policymaker will have to do the trade-off to take decisions. For example, your conclusion will be that the situation is most alarming from the economic or social point of view. The value chain is better off in environmental terms. You put the alarm on the areas where they need to act, but then the trade-off to take decision between these different, on how to act in this different area, it is in the end of the policymakers. But it is important and to try to clearly shows the connection in the executive summary to really help the policymaker then to make the decision, to interpret your recommendations and findings and to take the decision. And to wrap up all the process, now let's make an overview of the study products. So we have, first of all, of course, the final report. And we add here an element that we just mentioned on the beginning. We have a collaboration with COLA-ICP. And in the report, you will have at the end a market profile note that we will integrate in the form of a link. It will be published on the COLA-ICP website. COLA-ICP is an organization of companies and expertise which aim to promote, which support partner countries, ACP countries, African, Caribbean, Pacific countries to develop more inclusive and sustainable trade. And they provide intelligence services to analyze markets, focusing on monitoring of food regulations, safety standards, etc. And in our case, they provide a market profile note looking at the international aspects of trade and markets. And this note, as said, it supports mostly the expert for the functional analysis. This is the market profile, then which is part of the study. It will be integrated in the report in the form of a link. Then after the report, we will provide for community, for visibility and community reasons, what we call at the glance, which is simply a summary, a figure summarizing the main findings of the BCA4D, especially focusing on the flows. And then another important instrument, we say, particularly for policymakers, for the larger public, for community activity, communication activity, but especially, first of all, for policymaker, is the study brief. The study brief, or what we call 6 pages, is the summary of the main findings of the BCA4D report. So you have a first part with the functional analysis, then 1 page, let's say, for each framing questions, the contribution to growth, growth inclusiveness, social sustainability, environmental sustainability, and then a final part on conclusions and recommendations. This is maximum 6 pages. It is 6 pages, the study brief. And this will be produced to be shared to the larger public, and it sometimes often is used also for the stakeholder workshop. You will see what they are. So now we have looked at all the elements, calendar, milestones, deliverables, products, actors, and we can now summarize quick wins and lessons learned from what the PMU learned of the process together with the expert. And these are a basis for you. Try to make always better and to have less problems during the implementation of the study, elaboration of the report. Of course, it might be obvious, but you need to work as a team, really as a team, collaborating at every step of the process. To be effective, the multidisciplinary team has to work in an integrated way with a collaborative mindset. Really important, crucial to put multidisciplinarity in practice. All experts, not only the team leader, are responsible for the functional analysis, as we saw, for the executive summary, and for replying to helping the team leader to reply to the following questions. The core of the study of the VCA for this study is the field mission. These are the added value, because we say it is a study really based on quantitative data, but the desk review of secondary data is very important, especially at the beginning. It can save time and resources, and in some cases of urgency, like it was for COVID, it was fundamental to the desk review, the data collection remotely, to let the expert go on while waiting to do the mission. So it is really fundamental. The national expert is a key actor in data collection, both for secondary and primary sources. Another very important aspect, please communicate as much as you can anytime you need with the PMU, especially if you need methodological support in case of delays and deliverables, but also if you have problems with the team, if you have problems communication with the delegation, etc., etc. It is better to prevent problems and to find the common ground if you have delays, etc., that to create misunderstanding and deception in the expectation of the EU delegation because we are too late and we discover this at the last second. So really count on us whenever you need. The VCA4D is not research by consultancy with the robustness of research. I think we repeated this several times, but it is really important to stress that we understand sometimes researchers say yes, but we cannot close our eyes on the fact that we miss some data. But at one moment, there is a moment where you need to make a compromise. We can't allow studies to last for 2 years, because we need to provide these results to the policymakers. And also another important point, which it is more formal, but it's very important for us to save time, to avoid misunderstanding on the quality backstopping, etc. Respect the structure of the template that we provide, and be mindful of the layout of the reports, table numbering, references, etc. Because it really saves time, and sometimes also avoid to make important mistakes on data, etc. And another very important thing, you might know that you need to respect the GDPR rules on data protection. We will provide you some guidance at the beginning of the process, so that you already in the draft final report, you try to respect the rules, and you avoid to mention names of people interviews without their consent, or to mention companies if there is no consent on sharing their information that they provided, etc., etc. But we will provide you specific a note to try to respect the GDPR rules in the VCA for the report. So this is the last point. What we can do together after the VCA for this study. The first step, as we said, soon after the report is approved by F3, is to produce the 6-page study brief. Normally, we ask the team if the team wants to start the first elaboration and then the PMU complete, or the opposite. So the most of the time is the PMU started, because we know now after 35 studies how to develop the information in the study brief, but you will have to comment, to agree, to validate, to integrate, etc. And then another core activity after the study, it is the organization of the workshop. Once again, as the study, this is demand-driven. That means if the delegation want to share the results with the larger public, with the national partners, they ask for the stakeholder workshop. The stakeholder workshop is covered under another budget, fee-based, so the expert will have additional days with the different terms of reference, and hopefully, normally it has to be in the field. During the COVID time, we try to do virtually, but it is really important. We have done one stakeholder workshop in Ethiopia virtually, but it is really important now, if we can come back to normality, to do this physically, to meet the partners, and to try really to share the results locally with partners. Then, as we already mentioned, there is the possibility to request updates regularly every few years, so that the delegation can become aware of trends and to be able to appreciate and correctly interpret changes of the value chain over time. And another important point, beyond the fact of monitoring the development of the value chain, we try to encourage as much as we can that the EU delegation count on the expert and this community of practice that acquire knowledge on the VCA for the methodology to support further the EU delegation in their policy dialogue and operation beyond the study. Means once the study ended, the delegation can need additional information, more in-depth analysis on specific issues, etc., etc. And we will try to encourage more and more this. And of course, this additional activity will be covered by additional budget and specific terms of references. And finally, another opportunity that experts have to collaborate with the VCA for the project and to take advantage of the report produced is to make scientific collaboration to prepare publications among AgriNatura experts. And so there are opportunities for cross-cutting analysis and discussion within the community of practice and between the community of practice also and policymakers. Okay, so let's close our presentation with an overview of all the VCA analysis realized by the project. As you can see, the majority of the studies have been performed in Sub-Saharan Africa, and the highest number in Western Africa, but we have more and more studies in Latin America. We have Honduras, Nicaragua, Colombia. We have 2 studies in Colombia ongoing, and also in Asia we have Georgia, Cambodia, and Papua New Guinea. And in terms of products, we have cereals, fruits and vegetables, meat, dairy, but more and more we have also requests on fisheries. We really cover all the agri-food value chains. And once again, these are requested by the delegation depending on the programs, but we are really open to all the agri-food value chain that are of interest for the EU delegation. I really suggest you to look at the website. If you click on this link, you will have in the home page, beyond the presentation of the summary of the methodological framework, you will have the list of all the studies and the product and countries. And if you click on each country, you will have the overview of the documents available. So the study, the full report, the study brief, the at the glance, and also the link to the COLA-ICP study for the most recent analysis. I think now we can close the presentation of the study process here. I really thank you very much for listening, and do not hesitate to write to the value chain analysis for development email if you have questions, and we will meet during the briefing, and we are looking really forward to your questions to clarify any steps of the VCA for the process. Now I'm very glad to leave the floor to my colleagues of the quality backstopping side, Marie-Hélène and Eval, that they will present you the methodological framework more in detail, starting with the rationale of the methodology, then moving to the functional analysis, the economic analysis, the environmental analysis, and the social analysis. And also they will show you an overview of how to present also the synthesis and the results of the study. Once again, thanks a lot. We meet virtually soon for the briefing. Bye-bye.